Injuries have always been a part of every sport, and baseball is no exception. Despite the advancements of modern medicine, coming back from a major injury isn't as easy as you might think. But when we take a look at some of the more recent examples of potentially devastating injuries, there's more reason to be optimistic that Ronald Acuna Jr. will come back better than ever. That Aaron Judge really is the same guy who hit 62 home runs in 2022, and that Bryce Harper and Shohei Ohtani are truly not of this world. At the end of the day, recent history tells us that it might just be down to the mental side of recovery more so than physical ability. Just in the last few years, we've had a ton of high-profile examples where guys like Aaron Judge even admitted that his toe might never be the same after injuring it on this play at Dodger Stadium. And I'd bet that plays a subconscious role on ball players who take the field 162 times in the regular season. But for Aaron Judge, a bum toe hasn't done anything to deter him. With an absolutely monster month of May, Judge should now be your AL MVP frontrunner despite how good Juan Soto has looked in his first year with the Yankees. Judge led all of Major League Baseball with 2.9 wins above replacement per Fangraphs, while hitting .361 with an OPS close to 1,400. In that span, he also posted a .277 WRC+. No, that's not a typo. He was almost 3 times as productive as the major league average. And while it's just 1 month, you can't deny that Judge looks arguably better than he did in 2022 when he won AL MVP. Even with a full-time move to center field to make room for Soto in right, Judge hasn't lost a beat. Despite playing a more demanding defensive position, Judge is still good value defensively, even if he isn't among the league's best. Not that anyone really thought Judge in year 2 of a massive 9-year, $360 million contract was washed. And though we're only into month 3 of the new season, you would be right in believing that Judge will continue to be the dominant player he is. And with Ohtani now in the National League, Judge doesn't have a two-way player to deter him from a second AL MVP, should he continue on this pace. But there's another outfielder who hasn't quite looked like himself after an initially minor injury. While seemingly innocuous at the time, Christian Yelich fouling this ball off his kneecap completely derailed what was surely going to be a second successive NL MVP, only to be beaten to the award by Cody Bellinger. We'll get to Bellinger in a second, but what was set to be a gargantuan year for Yelich turned into the Brewers' superstar outfielder missing the rest of the 2019 season. And he never really looked the same, especially in 2021 when he was an absolute shell of himself. In 2021, Yelich struck out 23.8% of the time while hitting .248 with a .736 OPS. Those numbers sit near what is usually major league average, but for a guy who was as dominant as he was, it was a disappointing year. His numbers in 2022 looked somewhat similar, as he hit .252 with a .738 OPS and a .111 WRC+. Better than league average, but still not quite the Yelich of old. Though he bounced back slightly in 2023 and we thought we were going to see the real Yelich emerge once again, he never turned a corner. He still hasn't quite looked like the 2018-2019 version of himself. And while that might just end up being the peak of his career, we're left to wonder what if. So far in 2024, he's looking more like his old self, hitting .318 with a .929 OPS and a .162 WRC+. His strikeout rate is the lowest it's been since 2019, but he's only hit 6 home runs with 8 stolen bases. The hallmark of his game at his best was power and speed. But since that injury, we've just been left to wonder what could have been. The same line of thinking applies to the guy who did win NL MVP in 2019. Cody Bellinger's career trajectory is eerily similar to Yelich's, and after injuring his shoulder celebrating this home run against the Atlanta Braves in Game 7 of the 2020 NLCS, Bellinger didn't come close to replicating any of his previous success at the plate until 2023. You probably know the 2019 story by now, and I've covered it in a previous video. but Bellinger was an absolute monster in 2019, particularly in the first half of the year. And while the 2020 season remains an outlier for obvious reasons, Bellinger wasn't all that good in 2021 or 2022 either. 2021 was an absolute disaster for Bellinger when he hit just 165 with a 542 OPS with an enormous 26.9% strikeout rate. Bellinger, per Fangraphs, was worth -1 win above replacement, just 2 seasons removed from being worth 7.9 and running away with NL MVP. 2022 was more of the same, with a slight improvement in his offensive and defensive metrics across the board. Despite a bounce back in 2023, Bellinger still hasn't really returned to similar levels as he was prior to injury. He did hit .307 with the Cubs last season, but Bellinger's hard hit rate was a career low 29.2% in 2023. He also outperformed many of his expected offensive metrics, suggesting some element of good fortune. Like Yelich, it may well just be a case of those good years being his peak, but you can't deny that injuries played more of a role than we might think. For us normal folks, injuries can hamper us from performing at high levels. But Bryce Harper and Shohei Ohtani aren't really of this world. Both guys underwent major elbow surgery and proceeded to be exactly who they were, if not better, post-injury. Harper came back from Tommy John surgery in just about 160 days, and while it makes sense given he's a position player, not a pitcher, it's still amazing that a significant surgery didn't disrupt any of his ability to produce at the highest level. Prior to his injury, Harper was consistently posting an OPS close to 900, including a 1,044 OPS in his 2021 MVP season. After returning from injury and moving to first base full-time, Harper is still fully capable of being the player he was prior to that injury. In 2023, Harper posted an even 900 OPS with a 142 WRC+, while being worth 3.5 wins above replacement as an everyday first baseman for the first time as a professional. So far in 2024, he's arguably looked better, with an 897 OPS and a 149 WRC+, while already being worth 2.3 wins above replacement. While he only slugged 21 homers in 126 games in 2023, Harper has hit 14 home runs in just 56 games so far this season at the time of this recording. To come back from major injury and produce at the big league level at that rate is one thing, but to do it and look arguably better is another thing entirely. Like Harper, you could even argue that Shohei Ohtani is a better player on the offensive side of the ball now than he was prior to undergoing elbow surgery. After a major procedure in the offseason, Ohtani has so far in 2024 hit .322 with a 988 OPS and a 180 WRC+. He's also slugged 14 home runs and posted a hard hit percentage of 57.5%, a career high. He's also been, according to Fangraphs, worth 2.9 wins above replacement solely as a hitter. That number eclipses his rookie mark of 2.7 FWAR and is more than half his 2021 season through just 58 games. Ohtani's obsession with baseball is well documented, but to be as good as he is after major surgery is another thing entirely. Yes, you can still hit after Tommy John, but any normal person wouldn't have the same sort of form after injury without the supernatural ability married to an otherworldly work ethic. We've seen a little bit of everything as far as coming back from injury. Some guys have been better, some worse, and some have stayed the same. But what about the most recent example in Ronald Acuna Jr.? In July of 2021, Acuna was carted off the field after landing awkwardly trying to catch a fly ball in Miami. He ended up missing the rest of the 2021 season as the Braves somehow won the World Series without him. When he returned in May of 2022, Acuna was nowhere near his old self. He wasn't hitting the ball with the same authority and lacked the explosiveness he had shown in previous years. In 2022, Acuna was good, but not great. In the 119 games he played for Atlanta, he hit .266 with a 764 OPS and a 115 WRC+. He still hit 15 homers and stole 29 bases in 2022, and this was prior to the new rules being put in place in 2023. The glimpses were there, but it was a far cry from what he'd achieve in 2023. As you probably know, last season he posted the first ever 40-70 season en route to a unanimous NL MVP. He led the Braves in virtually every offensive category except for home runs and RBIs. And more importantly, he looked like his old self, if not better. 2024, though, was a different story before his injury. He routinely missed fastballs in the middle of the strike zone, as did a lot of Braves hitters, don't get me started. And eventually on May 26th, suffered a torn ACL in his left leg, the non-surgically repaired one, and will miss the rest of the season. The biggest question mark for a player so reliant on speed and explosiveness will be the same as it was for him in 2022. Can he become his old self once again? Or will he go the way of a Christian Yelich or Cody Bellinger and potentially show glimpses but never really get back to what he was? You never really know what to expect when a guy goes down injured. Whether it's something serious like a torn ACL or seemingly straightforward like a dinged up shoulder. Some guys don't miss a beat after surgery, even if it takes a little bit, and others won't ever be as good as they were in years gone by. But one thing is certain. It takes a certain form of mental strength to get through injury. Having a truly obsessive mindset and an unmatched drive is probably more important than we think. And I'm not saying that guys who don't return to previous form are mentally weak. But the great divider between those who emerge better than they were pre-injury will always be the mentality. That's all for this one. Next time, we'll dive into pitchers and see just how they recover from Tommy John surgery or other elbow and shoulder procedures. It's an interesting one because pitching is so nuanced, but you'll have to make sure you subscribe for that one. If you enjoyed today's video, a like is greatly appreciated, and make sure you're subscribed for more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.